Good. We have our staff in place. As you know, we've hired a considerable number of new people, and we go at great length to try to get the very best possible people we can in the school system, and I believe we have a great group of new employees that are going to be joining our organization. So all in all, we're ready to go, and I thank our principals, our school secretaries, our custodians, our bus drivers will be up probably the earliest tomorrow, going after their bus runs. But I just would like to applaud the entire school staff for being well prepared tomorrow, and I'm sure we're going to have a great opening day. With that, we have some additional personnel announcements to make. We've hired 3 additional teachers since we last met. Chad Badgero, a young man who will be teaching English at the high school. He comes from Williamston, where he taught for a short period of time, and then left Williamston to go to New York. And we've had the opportunity to interview him, and we think he's going to be an outstanding English teacher. He's got a strong background in theater as well, which we certainly welcome. Also, Jessica Cooper will be a 3rd grade teacher at Roya. We know Jessica Rapper. She graduated from Haslett High School, I guess 4 or 5 years ago.
Seven, at least 7.
7, maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
More than
Do my arithmetic.
She
Okay.
graduated with one of his kids probably. You know the year.
But she has had some experience out in Pennsylvania where she taught, and we welcome her home, and she's going to be an outstanding teacher. And then lastly, Ann Larson, who will also be at Roya as a 4th grade teacher. She received her Bachelor of Science degree from Michigan State University, and she has a major in general science. Also, an important part of this school year was the challenge that we faced, along with all of our school employees, that all of our employee contracts have expired. And so one of the things that kept us busy this summer is we did do some serious negotiations throughout the summer, and I'm pleased to announce that we've reached tentative agreements with all of our unions but one, that being the paraprofessionals. As of this evening, the secretaries and applied service unions have ratified the 2 agreements, and we are confident that the teachers will see fit to do that tomorrow. And so, at the conclusion of our business meeting this evening, I'm going to ask that the board take action to move into closed session so we can go over those tentative agreements with the board so that you can consider those, and then we would hope that you'd come out of executive session and see fit to ratify those agreements as well. And then the last thing I'd like to do is I mentioned the extensive construction that took place in our community this summer, and will actually be continuing for the next couple years. But I'd also like to take a minute to salute all the men and women who have worked on our projects. These are not Haslett employees, but they're men and women from the various companies around the greater Lansing and actually beyond. That's the pipe fitters, the electricians, the carpenters, the carpet installers, heating and cooling people. We believe they've just done an excellent job, and we want them to know that we appreciate their good work and their good deeds. And I think we're going to enjoy their labor for many, many, many years. So we appreciate all of those workers, of whom some are certainly from our own community. So it's great. And I believe that's my report. Other than Sharon wanted to share something with the board.
Our calendar is hot off the press. It was delivered last week Wednesday, and we want our community and school members or parents to know that these calendars are available in their schools. Children should be taking them home tomorrow, and or you can pick them up at your open houses. This calendar doubles as our school annual report, and so there's a lot of information in here about your individual child's school building.
moving on to discussion items, the item number unproposed 2003 refunding bond issues. Dave, is that you?
Good evening. We come to you today with a recommendation to approve a refunding of a portion of our school bond loan fund loan that we have with the state of Michigan. I don't know if you recall, but as part of the state aid law that passed this year, the state is refinancing part of the school bond loan fund in order to generate one-time monies that can come back into the school aid fund. And so as part of that, they're requesting, and it's only about 6 schools right now, requesting those 6 schools to refinance their bonds. They do have a little penalty there that says, if you don't do it, then we're going to charge you more for your retirement rate than you would any other school district. And that's just a little penalty there that I think to help us make the decision. But from our standpoint, part of it looks like a win-win for us in that it allows us to refinance some debt at a time where interest rates are low, and it allows us to change a variable rate debt into a fixed rate debt that then we'll pay over the next 15 or so years. We don't know exactly what the terms will be yet, because once they bring all the schools together, we'll be such a small piece of that, and everybody will be a small piece of that, that it's going to be done by the Michigan Municipal Bond Authority, and so we'll find out more of the details when the sale happens. So, but estimates that we received from Starter Barch and Associates, which they are our financial advisor for bond issues, is that we would save about $1.8 million over the life of paying back the school bond loan fund, and the present value of that would be about $800,000. So it is a significant amount of savings, and that's savings for the taxpayers. We wouldn't see our rate change necessarily, but it would mean that the 8.33 mils for debt that we have would just end quicker into the future. But at least for the time being, we would continue to see the 8.33 mils. For us, it seems like I would do a no-brainer in that we don't get the penalty, plus we have financial savings, and so we're more than happy to cooperate with the state, and so we've made that recommendation to you.
You mentioned
Any
6
questions?
schools. I guess, I thought it was statewide.
The school bond loan fund is statewide,
Right.
but they are only refinancing, I think, $120 million of their balance, and so they have to keep each school's portion of that under 20%, so that the red tape end of things is more minimal. We don't have to do as we did our normal bond issues, we had a preliminary statement that we put out, an official statement, and it took a lot of time to generate information for. Well, in this kind of situation where every school is less than 20%, they can do a state one and not have to have all the detail in it. They're trying to do this quickly and timely and without putting a lot of burden on us, and we appreciate that.
Does that mean the expense has also been borne by the state of the refund?
Bond issues, as they set those up, they usually take all the expenses and pay for them out of the proceeds.
So we will all be separate, all of the 6 districts will be sharing the expense of the
That's correct.
refinancing at 16 2/3% or whatever the number is?
Yes. For instance, when we do a state aid note through the Michigan Municipal Bond Authority, we're one of several hundred school districts doing it. They put all those together and sell them together, and then based on how much of the balance you're borrowing, of the total balance, we get that same percentage of the costs. But what they do is net down the proceeds. So we're not going to make any kind of payments out of the district for this. It's paid for out of the savings of the refinancing.
Right, I understand that. That's what. Does this have anything to do with the economy of the state? Is the reason the state's coming to these districts to do this? I mean, or is this going to be like a?
Well, it's part of what the state has done to fill the gaps this fiscal year in the funding. It's a one-time set of money. The real issue is that as districts accrue the balance to the state, in other words, when we borrow money, right now, we're not paying any interest or principal towards that. Okay, that's the school bond loan fund balance. That builds up until we're done paying our other notes, and then we pay that down. The state, though, in order to give us that money, they borrow money to do that. And they've been paying the interest and the principal on those bonds. And what has happened is what we owe the state is actually higher than what the state owes the bondholders that they've issued. And I know this is getting confusing, but what they're gonna do is make those two equal, and they're gonna take this difference and use that to help fund for our operating costs this year.
So this is cutting the state's expense by doing this, is that
Yes.
by,
And it's actually,
and saving us money to boot?
they've paid that over a number of years, and so now they're gonna take all that and sweep it in and use that to help pay for the shortfall in the state aid fund this year.
Would make one wonder why it's only 120 million. I mean, why cap it if there were more districts available to do this?
I don't know all the reasons for what they're doing, but I can tell you that there's a lot of people involved, and if it could be bigger, they would make it bigger, because the savings would be bigger, and
Yeah, they probably made a lot themselves, but okay. Thank you.
We're on a state timeline, Dave, so that's why we're asking the board to consider taking action on this tonight.
that's correct. We basically found out about it last week, and we're pleased to find out that we didn't have to call a special board meeting, because that was in question at one point in time. But the Michigan Municipal Bond Authority is actually acting on it today as well, and then the sale will happen sometime in September, so it's on a pretty quick time frame. I think the closing will actually happen after October 1, because they want the savings to be in the next fiscal year for the state.
Any other questions for Dave? Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
Which brings us to action items. There's 4 action items. Does anybody want any of them pulled? Then let me do a quick read through. Number 1 is approval of the August 11th minutes. Number 2 is the approval of the board policy manual section 8000 that we discussed at our last board meeting. Number 3 is the recommendation for hire of the 3 teachers that Mr. Regan talked about in his report. Number 4 is the proposed 2003 refunding bond issue. So a motion to approve.
I move we approve the 4 action items.
Support?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Announcements. We have the one announcement, the next board meeting will be held on September 8th at 7 o'clock here in the boardroom. Any other announcements? And I would entertain a motion that we go into closed session.
So moved.
Support?
All those in favor?
Aye.
So we have to
I
have
think we
a-
gotta do
Roll
roll
call.
call.
Mr. Thibodeau?
Yes.
Mrs. Levy?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mrs. Belzer?
Yes.
Mr. McIntyre?
Yes.
Could I announce or
Sure.
suggest that we are going to go off the air? There's no reason for the students to stay here while we're in executive session. No action will be taken in executive session. However, I did mention that when we come out of executive session, there will be an administrative recommendation to the board that they do consider approving the tentative agreements with the various labor unions. And if time permits, we would like to adjourn our meeting and then as a board go through our middle school and see some of the capital improvements that we've made.
I look forward to that. Great.
Sounds good.
Okay.